You know what we'll do? That's what I said before I realized I was still muted on my big mic. We'll go in here today. Sometimes you could just use a little change of space, I think. I don't really have anything, so like it's a physical book, what we'll be reading today. I usually will go into the other space where there's like the big window that usually like people that are streaming video games will put themselves into. But I don't feel like it. I don't feel like looking it up, so we're not going to. Um, what we're reading today is picking up from when did we read this last? 2 or 3 weeks ago, I believe. And it's a book by Susan Griffin that's called Women and Nature. So for anyone that wasn't here last time, Susan Griffin is or was, I believe they passed. I'm not entirely sure. If anyone knows, please let me know. But Susan Griffin's work fucking rules. That's all you really need to know. What doesn't rule about it is, as many people really just generally throughout history, but also any kind of, especially second wave feminist, often gets wrong, is they universalize the idea of woman. And so, if you wanted to see a larger like critique of that I made in the first reading of this book, I believe I exported it in time for it to still exist in my Dr. Bird on Twitch playlist that's on my YouTube. But in short, not everyone that's assigned female at birth is a woman. And this book was written in 1978. So they didn't stand a chance at knowing that, because even though it was known already that that's not the case, it was a lot more normal to be cis heterosexist then than it should be now. So, anyway, what's interesting about this book, and I'll read, you know what, I'll, instead of saying that, let me just read the back to you. Because she tells you exactly what I was probably about to say. So, like I said, it's called Woman and Nature, The Roaring Inside Her. And it's by Susan Griffin. And this is the description on the back. Woman and Nature is about memory and mutilation, female anger as power, female presence as transforming force. It embraces ritual and science, history and imagination, calling up the voices and body of our earth, and restoring to us knowledge of her beauty and our own. In one of the infinite false polarities of patriarchy, both the exploiter rapists and the sexist ecology movement have lumped women and nature together in a view negative for us both. Griffin has collected here the most apparently disparate materials: lumbering manuals, gynecology texts, the pronouncements of early theologians, annals of American exploration, office manuals, poetry, the dreams of the scientists, etc., into an extraordinary collage, which, for all the research and hard intellectual work underlying it, becomes an intense physical experience. So that's what she does. The book is divided, from what I remember, into 3 parts, where basically the first part, as it suggests again, is her just like the very first part we read last time was mostly what was first written by Abrahamic religions. Because she really, really recounts the exact word that they say, because it's important to know the exact words that people have said when they're orchestrating a system of power that dehumanizes the most of us. And so that's what I appreciate about, as insufficient and oftentimes overtly racist that first and second wave feminists were, like their arguments were never good enough. The argument that Griffin makes, and I believe she would qualify as a second wave feminist, just by default of it being in the 70s. She does a bit better job, but to understand it even better, what I did when I first read this is I read it in tandem with a book about indigenous sovereignty. And so definitely check that out. That's what I read first last time, and then we started reading this. So we didn't get as far into this as we would have otherwise. But yeah, check that out if I believe I exported it in time and it exists. But anyway, We're continuing with a section. She has mini chapters. It's like very, very short. This one's called Land. Her changing face. Territory. I saw everything as no man had ever seen before. I felt like an explorer in medicine who first views a new and important territory. Marion Sims, MD, on the invention of the speculum. Consider him who chose to be born of a virgin. Freely he penetrates viscera known only to himself, and with greater joy enters paths where none has ever been. These limbs, he feels, are his own, unsoiled and unshared by any man. Fortunatus, Bishop of Poitiers, 530 to 609, Opera Poetica. A country that hath yet her maidenhead, never sacked, turned, nor wrought. Sir Walter Raleigh, Discovery of Guyana. So those are three quotes that she put at the beginning. Anyway, let's get into this. Sea, mountain, river, plain, forest, gorge, field, meadow, rock, plateau, desert, mountain, valley, sea. He is the first. Truly, he has come farther than any man before him. His eyes have beheld what has not been seen before. What newness he is blessed with! What freshness! None of the beauty of this land has been brought down, no part soiled. He is the first to tread here. Only the mark of his shoes effaces the soil. Pine, otter, canyon, musk ox. She gives up her secrets. He is the first to know, and he gives names to what he sees. He records the existence of these things. He is thinking to preserve these moments for posterity. He draws a map of his way across this land, and he charts the shape of the place. Behind the mountain range, on the other side of the valley, down the river stream, across the gorge, he finds the unknown irresistible. He believes what is hidden in this land calls to him. So again, she says this all like she quotes it in the phrasing that colonizers did. Because obviously we all know that there were people there already. But she's saying it because she's saying, look at what they created. They created this idea that this is what it was. As if that was. And then people literally went on to believe that. He feels undiscovered grasses tremble in wait for him. He imagines mysterious lakes glistening revelation. He knows there are meadows ignorant of his being which will open to him. He has a taste for knowledge. Missouri River, Council Bluffs, Sioux City, despite all dangers, he penetrates farther. Cheyenne River, Knife River, White Earth River, he vanquishes darkness. He vanquishes despair. Bear Palm Mountains, Big Belt Mountains, Great Falls. He places his life in the balance. Clark Pass, yet he is brave. Lewis Hellgate, yet he is ardent. Snake River, and the wilderness embraces him. He is taken up by wildness. He becomes wild. Now the secrets of this place are his, and each of his footsteps is a triumph. Windstorm, in facing down danger, he has become more than himself. Thunderstorm, he is conqueror. Lightning, he has pierced the veiling mountains, ridden the rivers, spanned the valley, measured the gorge. He has discovered. Now nothing of this place is unknown, and because of his knowledge, this land is forever changed. This was his dream. The struggle. She should never have looked at me if she meant I should not love her. Lord Byron, Christina. He will find enough to damp his ardor. Francis Parkman, The Oregon Trail. He writes that the scenery is tame, graceful, and pleasing, that there is an abundance of streams, level plains too wide for the eye to measure, green undulations like the motionless swells of the ocean. Yet whoever looks on the land, he writes, will find enough to damp his ardor. His wagon will stick in the mud, he writes. His horse will break loose, harness give way, axle tree break. His bed will be of mud of the richest consistency, and he will find little to eat since this country strangely produces little game. How's it going? He may travel for a fortnight, he writes, without seeing the hoof print of a deer or the sign of a prairie hen. Yet he will find wolves, and they will howl at night and skulk around him by day. His horse will step in badger holes. Legions of frogs will croak and bellow from every marsh and mud puddle, and mosquitoes will rob him of sleep. Snakes too will glide under his horse's feet or visit his tent at night, or when he is thirsty after a long day's ride over the prairie, under the scorching sun, when he finally comes to a pool of water and stops to drink, he will find tadpoles in the bottom of his cup. How's it going, Blake? We're reading Women in Nature by Susan Griffin. And every afternoon, with a provoking regularity, he can expect a thunderstorm, which will drench him to the skin. The Abyss. She claims him with her great blue eyes. She binds him with her hair. Oh, break the spell with holy words, unbind him with a prayer. John Greenleaf Whittier, The Witch of Wenham. This wild abyss, the womb of nature and perhaps her grave. John Milton, Paradise Lost. He wandered like a forgotten ghost that has passed into the land of the spirits. John James Audubon, The Lost One. Suddenly he finds he cannot see. He is surrounded by fog, and the grass is taller than he is. With every step, his ignorance deepens. He is lost. He cannot see his way out. Huge gray trees spread giant burrows over him. Rank grass extends on all sides. No living being crosses his path. The land is like oblivion. His cabin is lost to him. He runs on hour after hour, but with each movement he loses more the sense of where he is. Chill and heavy dews descend. Night falls. Now he is in the midst of darkness, and he is filled with terror. His body is filled with fatigue. He is hungry. Now he hears animals about him, but he cannot kill them. In the midst of abundance, he will starve. He has lost all knowledge. He knows only his own smallness, his own need, and then he must appear small to the animals, the trees, grasses, skies. He is helpless. He prays to Almighty God. He wanders like a ghost into the land of the forgotten. With each step, this place pierces through him to reveal more clearly his desperation. Guide. As soon as they saw the squaw wife of the interpreter, they pointed to her and informed those who continued yet. The sight of this, and I'm assuming this they mean a tribal person, the Indian, as if that's like they say Indian is what I'm saying, which is obviously both are bad, both are inaccurate. Um, Wife to one of our interpreters confirmed those peoples of our friendly intentions, as no woman ever accompanies a war party of Indians in this quarter. The journals of Lewis and Clark. You see, like, duh, because of course that was Lewis and Clark. Cited by Hubbard Sacagawea. There are no institutions, no politics, no government where my sex and I have not been dominated, subdued, and robbed of our potential and talents as we are excluded from patriarchal privilege. What then does it mean for a woman to be loyal in patriarchy? Kathleen Barry. Did I ever have a chance? She knew her skill, and she knew it well. She could speak more than one language. She spoke their language, and she spoke her own, which they could not speak. The father, it was recorded, frequently disposed of his infant daughters in marriage to grown men, for the use of their sons. She had learned all the customs of their people and of her own people, which they did not know. The compensation, it was written, given in such cases consisted of horses or mules delivered to the father. She could ride horses in any terrain, navigate rivers, she could do all that they could do, and she could do more. She bore a child, she foraged for food, she fed them what she had dug from underground, which they had never before tasted. Sacagawea, they noted, had been disposed of before she was captured by the... It's split up the words, so this is already probably a word. Minitaries, it looks like. But unless somebody knows that I'm mispronouncing it, let me know. Her husband, more than twice her age, had two other wives. Though he did claim her as his wife because she had had a child by another man, he did not want her. She knew this land, which they had never seen before, for which they had no maps. She told them she had lived in this land as a child, that she had been taken from this place from her girlhood. Where they were afraid they could not go on, she was familiar. As a child, she had been captured. She led them by the Minataries through this territory. From these Indians, it is said. Again, whenever she says it, it's said, it's like that's literally how they documented it, and that's what she's recounting, not like the actual truth. She helped them. Charbonneau either purchased her, secure horses, or won her by gambling. She went on with them, and afterwards, leading them out of the territory, he married her, to which he was born. She was well liked by them. They adopted her son, and he learned their ways. They sent a party to the sea, and if certain words blistered her lungs, reported seeing a whale. If some words burnt through her tongue, and they wrote. If some words the Indian woman had begged, had eaten like fire in her belly to see the large fish, still she showed no such pain, and was therefore permitted to join the party to the beach, and she had survived. Possession. Indians told him stories of a fabulous island called Bimini, where gold delicious fruits and all that man might desire could be found in abundance. Furthermore, the island had a fountain which he had the virtue of restoring youth to any old man who drank from it or bathed in it. Lewis B. Wright and Elaine Fowler, The Moving Frontier. When you look at them with their clothes on, you might imagine all sorts of things. You give them an individuality, like which they haven't got, of course. There's just a crack there between the legs. It's an illusion. All that mystery about sex, and you discover that it's nothing. Just a blank. There's nothing there. Nothing at all. Henry Miller, Tropic of Cancer. So that's also why, like, a lot of my early, well, no, not a lot of it, but a decent amount of my early research for my diss about sexual ecologies looked at the way that, quite literally, like, the vulva was seen as a sex that didn't exist. Like, it was like the absence of a penis. That's all it was considered for most of human history. It wasn't considered or prioritized. It's just like, well, there's nothing there. I guess we're case is closed. Coming through finally to the end, having traversed the entire entrance to this territory as if to an opening suddenly, he came to a sea, a wide ocean, another horizon. Again, a new possibility greeted him as silently as all the forests he had braved. He is disappointed. This land he has devoted himself to has turned out to be a delusion. She is a house of mirrors. Now the sea beckons, as did her plains, her mountain, her passes, valleys, deserts. And beyond the sea, now finally, in an awakened state, he knows will simply be another land, begging entrance, so that he might submerge himself in her darkness to find what secrets. Only this silence again. To himself, quietly, he admits there is no fountain, no endless lining of gold, no secret marked for him. He will age like every other traveler before him, like men who are born and die, only having traveled the length of a woman's body. Any part of his body he has lost in this, he sees now, will not come back to him. He is cast over with weariness, and yet the land he sees is not tired. She is constantly renewed, as if this passage meant nothing to her, and her indifference seems to him a relentless cruelty of nothingness in the face of his search. But he will have something. On this bluff, high above the sea, he leaves a flag. This land will. I'm sorry, it's like I can't. It's just so fucking like ridiculous. Like, like I love that she's pointing this out. How just like that's honestly probably the most clever retelling of that I've ever seen. Where she's just like, yeah, he had nothing, so he was just like, well, let me put a flag here, I guess, like, because that means I did it. This land will bear his name. After him will come another man, or will come other men who will pronounce these syllables and acknowledge his ownership. and they will change the face of this land. Like that's obviously not the funny part, but it's ridiculous to think that at the very first time that that happened, that was total fucking bullshit. And then they were like, all right, we're gonna say it a lot, and that means that it's true. And that's just what they did. From primogeniture. In law, rule of inheritance, whereby land descends to oldest son. Columbia Desk Encyclopedia. Because the encyclopedia and every dictionary are made up. We shall tell you who gained and who lost in this way, for there were the fathers who held knew that their names, and those who did not would live on, those who were known and of the greatest estates, and those testifying to their glory and fame, who were unknown, would live on, those whose lives were vanished, and that the power would spread from those holdings of land, those whose labor would continue generation after generation, like the labor of the fields of the soil, to be great in the minds of the living, would pass like the passing of breath from the living. Use. On the arable? I don't think I've ever seen this. On the arable land, the cultivators will be increasingly mechanized, the management and operation of the machines being the responsibility of one group of workers. Field sizes will have been reshaped and enlarged to make cultivation easier. Weeds will be almost entirely controlled by means of herbicides. Crop variety bred to meet the needs of mechanized farming. The crops will be protected against pests and diseases from seed time to harvest by insecticides and fungicides. Sir William Slater, Farming as a Science-Based Industry, The World in 1984, Volume 1, 1964. The very use man makes of woman destroys her most pernicious power. Weighted down by maternities, she loses her erotic attraction. Simone de Beauvoir, The Second Sex. Putting virgin soil under cultivation initiates a breakdown of what may be called the body of the soil. William A. Albright, Physical, Chemical, Biological Changes in Soil Community. Man's Role in Changing the Face of the Earth. He breaks the wilderness. He clears the land of trees, brush, weed. The land is brought under his control. He has turned waste into a garden. Into her soil he places his plow. He labors, he plants, he sows. By the sweat of his brow he makes her yield. She opens her broad lap to him. She smiles on him. She prepares him a feast. She gives up her treasure to him. She makes him grow rich. She yields. She conceives. Her lap is fertile. Out of her dark interior life arises. What she does to his seed is a mystery to him. He counts her yielding as a miracle. He sees her workings as effortless. Whatever she brings forth he calls his own. He has made her conceive. His land is a mother. She smiles on the joy of her children. The joys of her children. She feeds him generously. Again and again, in his hunger, he returns to her. And again she gives to him. She is his mother. Her powers are a mystery to him. Silently she works miracles for him. Yet just as silently she withholds from him. Without reason she refuses to yield. She is fickle. She dries up. She is bitter. She scorns him. He is determined he will master her. He will make her produce at will. He will devise ways to plant what he wants in her, to make her yield more to him. He deciphers the secrets of the soil. He knows why she brings forth. He recites the story of the carbon cycle. He masters the properties of chlorophyll. He recites the story of the nitrogen cycle. He brings nitrogen out of the air. He determines the composition of the soil. Over and over he can plant the same plot of land with the same crop. He says that the soil is a lifeless place of storage. He says that the soil is what is tilled by farmers. He says that the land need no longer lie fallow. That what went on in her quietude is no longer a secret, that the ways of the land can be managed. that the farmer can ask whatever he wishes of the land. He replaces the fungi, bacteria, earthworms, insects, decay. He names all that is necessary: nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and these he says he can make. He increases the weight of kernels of barley with potash. He makes a more mealy potato with muriate of potash. He makes the color of cabbage bright green with nitrate. He makes onions which live longer with phosphates. He makes the cauliflower head early by withholding nitrogen. His powers continue to grow. Phosphoric acid, nitrogen fertilizers, ammonium sulfite, or sulfate, white phosphate, potash, iron sulfate, nitrate of soda, superphosphate, calcium. I didn't prepare for this list of complicated to say words, y'all. Calcium cinnamide, calcium oxide, calcium magnesium, zinc sulfate, phenobarbital, amph amphit oh, it's just amphetamine. It looks so complicated. Magnesium, estrogen, copper, copper sulfate, meprobom meprobamate, thalidomide, benzethonium, fluoride, Valium, hexachlorophene, oh, I can never say that one. Diethylstrobestrol. That's my best guess. I hope there's not a continued list of these complicated ass words. There isn't. What device she can use to continue, she does. She says that the pain is unbearable. Give me something, she says. What he gives her, she takes into herself without asking why. She says now that the edges of what she sees are blurred. The edges of what she sees and what she wants and what she is saying are blurred. Give me something, she says. What he gives her, she takes without asking. She says that the first pain is gone, or that she cannot remember it, or that she cannot remember why this began, or what she was like before, or if she will survive without what he gives her to take, but that she does not know or cannot remember why she continues. She says she cannot continue without him. He says she must have what he gives her. He says also that he protects her from the predators, that he gives her dichlorodiphenyltrichol or a fucking word, okay? Diludrin, chlorinated naphthalenes, chloridan, parathion, malathion, selenium, pentachlorophenol, arsenic, sodium arsenate, Amitrol, that he has rid her of pests, he says. And he has devised ways to separate himself from her. He sends machines to do his labor. His working has become as effortless as hers. He accomplishes days of labor with a small motion of his hand. His efforts are more astonishing than hers. No longer praying, no longer imploring, he pronounces words from a distance, and his orders are carried out. Even with his back turned to her, she yields to him, and in his mind he imagines that he can conceive without her. In his mind he develops the means to supplant her miracles with his own. In his mind he no longer relies on her. What he possesses, he says, is his to use and to abandon. Exploration. The development of the Middle West did exact its price of natural resources. As husbandry gave way westward to weed growing, the land was looked on less as homestead and more as speculation, to be cropped heavily and continuously for grain without benefit of rotation and manuring, and to be sold at an advantageous price, perhaps to reinvest in new and undepleted land. Carl Sower, The Agency of Man on the Earth. Mars speaks with red silence. Once we could not have answered. Only a few short years ago, we knew that we sat on a world that would birth and death us, find and forget us. But now this host of once lost children, grown up to be saved adults, gives answer. Mars we hear. Mars we move. Mars we arrive. Ray Bradbury. A Martian Chronicle with chicken soup. It is said that in his old age, automatically at their command, the shovel extends. He fears he is losing his powers and extracts a sample, that the aging of his body of soil makes him frantic, which is placed and thus frantically in an incubation chamber. He searches aboard the spacecraft for a young woman. The soil is kept, some say, perfectly dry, being close to youth, and is incubated, makes him younger for 5 days at 50 degrees, or at least he feels younger, under an arc lamp that simulates Martian sunlight. Others say a quartz window that proving he can still filter out ultraviolet light, attract a young woman that might have caused, restores him, spurious signals. And still others point out, on radioed command from Earth, that in capturing, the test chamber was filled. A young, even a virginal woman with Martian atmosphere. He has proven his prowess. Then the experimenters, once again, sent up a radio command, but in all cases that added a whiff of radioactive carbon. He must, dioxide and carbon monoxide, be free of his wife, to act as tracers in the experiment, at least temporarily. Unearth green plants, for age taken carbon dioxide, reminds him of his age, and if there were life on Mars and his limitations, vapor in the chamber would contain his encroaching weakness, traces of carbon, and death. I've never read anything by Ray Bradbury except for that one that I forget the name of. Oh, Death of a Salesman. That's the end of that chapter. So that's all I guess we need to know about land, like, according to Susan Griffin. At least based off of this critique of old texts that were created by colonizers. The next one is called Timber. What was there for them? What they found. Many a business depends for its success on some girl who is smart enough to see to it that her boss gets his work done, who sometimes even does his work for him, who keeps everybody satisfied and happy, and who has enough foresight to control new situations as they occur. How do you go about finding such a jewel? Richard and Reuben. How to select and direct the office staff. Suddenly, the settlers of the Oregon country found a fortune on their doorsteps. The green desert took on a new luster, with treasure hanging from every branch. Ellis Lucia, the Big Woods. Saw logs are a form of circulating capital. Joseph Zaremba, Economics of the American Lumber Industry. He is like a man in a dream who has discovered a treasure. He has come upon a forest untrod by human beings for hundreds of years. A dream, a transformation. In a trance, he makes figures. The numbers of the trees, their size. 3 to 4 million board feet for every 40 acres, he whispers to himself. Centuries of growth. Centuries of rainfall. The very moisture of the air is golden. This is the Comstock of the timber world, he declares. Fir, cedar, hemlock, sequoia, ripe for the cutting. Gradually, what this greenery can be becomes clear to them. They are astonished, breathless. Wherever they turn, they see timber, timber, timber. They call this green gold. Machinery, boilers, engines, pump augers, axes, chainsaws, hauled in from the city. Sawmills, cookhouses, bunkhouses built. The woods are alive. Glasses tinkle beyond the swinging doors, squeals of girls, the rousing shouts from the saloons, empty oaken kegs in the alleys, the thick forest of tall masts in the harbor, this last and greatest timber bonanza. By autumn, trees falling, moving upstream, wrenched from the western wilderness. 2,000 board feet a day, 3,673,697 board feet a year. 64,000 shingles, 42,103 feet of piling, 223 masts and spars. They see $70,999, and each year increasing. How the forest should look. There is but one way in which the office manager can control scientifically that is by standardization. The office manager should therefore continually direct his efforts to having each operation always done in exact accordance with the manner he has prescribed. Leafingwell and Robinson, Textbook of Office Management. Proper regrowth and efficient forest management of our present and prospective forested areas will assure sufficient lumber for domestic requirements and a profitable export trade. Nelson C. Brown, Lumber. Foresters will have worked out more precisely the types of forests to establish on different soils to give the greatest sustained yield, and species of trees used will have been bred for this purpose. E.M. Nicholson, Orchestrating the Use of Land, The World in 1984, Volume 1, 1964. The trees in the forest should be tall and free from not causing limbs for most of their height. They should not taper too much between the butt and the top last saw log. They should be straight. Among applicants, a person with high intelligence should be sought. She should be an expert typist, a stenographer. She should be diplomatic, neat, and well dressed. Trees growing in the forest should be useful trees. For each tree, ask if it is worth the space it grows in. Aspen, scrub pine, chokeberry, black gum, scrub oak, dogwood, hemlock, beech are weed trees, which should be eliminated. 1,000 cubic feet of one species can be worth more than the same quantity of another. Standard procedures for clerical work should be initiated. Find out the purpose of each kind of work. Ask, is this work necessary? Find out which species are of highest value to the consumer and plant these. For harvesting trees, it is desirable that a stand be of all the same variety and age. Nothing should grow on the forest floor, not seedling trees, not grass, not shrubbery. In one case, 19 girls, all working on the same operation, were using 10 different methods. Clear cutting the virgin stand and replanting the desired species is recommended. In the well-managed forest, poor and surplus trees have been thinned to make room for good trees. In such a forest, there is no room for overripe trees past their best growing years, for diseased trees or damaged trees, branchy or badly shaped trees. Is she accurate? Neat in her work and personal habits? Is she loyal? Can she be trusted? Is she courteous? Does she have a pleasing telephone personality? The forest is more easily managed if it is large, and the trees should be planted close together, so they will grow straight and tall to reach the light. There should be one central stenographic pool to render service for the entire office instead of small groups of uncontrolled stenographers throughout the office. Is she emotionally stable? Is she responsible, versatile, creative, consistent, confident? Does she have a good memory? Is she alert to the needs of others? Does she try her best? Can she spell? Does she learn from? The forest should be close to a sawmill. When the work is centralized, each stenographer will produce more than would otherwise be. The trees bred to grow more rapidly, to be more healthy, sounder, taller, thicker, straighter, and of more use to the consumer should gradually replace their inferiors. The study of human aptitudes. The selection of the human element best fitted to perform any task. In this way, the forest will yield, and yield again what is desired. Class. The study of human aptitudes, the selection of the human element best fitted to perform any particular task, is therefore an essential principle of the science of management, which from its very nature is not and cannot be wholly confined to inanimate objects. Leafingwell and Robinson, Textbook of Office Management. Wood for use in the manufacture of shingles should have the following properties. 1. Durability. 2, freedom from splitting and nailing. 3, dimensional stability. And 4, light. Hanshin, Harar, Baker, and Proctor, forest products. Third class clerk, pure routine concentration, speed, and accuracy. Works under supervision, may or may not be held responsible for results. Second class clerk, no supervision of others, exhaustive knowledge of details. First class clerk, more responsibility. Senior clerk, occasionally independent thinking and action, technical varied work, exceptional clerical ability, and extensive knowledge of business. Must be dependable, trustworthy, and resourceful. For paper, does she catch on easily? Spruce, southern yellow pine, hemlock, learns very rapidly, catches on easily, learns without difficulty. For toothpicks, white birch, needs repeated instructions, dull. For baskets, beech, elm, hard and soft maple, black and yellow birch, how does she control her emotions? For railway ties, white oak, Douglas fir, tamarack, southern pine, gum, beech, maple, too easily moved to anger or depression, tends to be over emotional. For mine timbers, Douglas fir, usually well balanced, unusual balance. Red oak, maple, beech, of responsiveness and control, unresponsive. Birch, ash, chestnut, apathetic. For veneers, tends to be unresponsive. Beech, birch, maple, cottonwood. The measure. Nationwide, we estimate that we have 37.5 billion board feet of uncut timber under contract. A.W. Greeley, Associated Chief of the Forest Service, in a letter to Joseph McGrathy, Vice President of the National Association of Home Builders. She picks up a piece of fabric with each hand from 2 piles of her left and right. 11 billion fence posts. She brings the pieces together and superimposes the corners to correspond. 10 billion railroad ties. With her knee, she raises the machine foot. 450 million telephone poles. She positions the right-hand corner in the machine an eighth an inch beyond the edge of the foot. She lowers the foot. She stitches along the fabric edge to the next corner, both her hands guiding the fabric to maintain an accurate stitch line. 2,400,000 million board feet cut in 160 years. Her feet controlling the machine, she continues similarly with the rest of the garment. We can recite the names to you of loblolly pine and the coastal plain of the southeast, and the Monongali. I can't say that word. My brain can't make sense of it. There's like vowels in the place that I'm not used to. Monongalia. Monongalia Woods of West Virginia. Is that right? Is anyone in that area knows what the fuck I just said? We can tell you about the growing of hemlock, yellow birch, sugar maple, magnolia, basswood, what color the leaves turn if they turn, and their odor, and the bark smell too. And in the southern highlands of the Blue Ridge Mountains, we remember scarlet and black oaks. We remember cherry, we remember beech, and birch beech, and holly. Calculate that in order to complete this task, she must have a sense of touch, she must have a sense of vision, she must have a sense of movement. And in the Green Mountains of Vermont, we can say we have seen white pine, and oak, and spruce, and maple, and beech, and lodgepole pine in Bitterroot, Montana, and Douglas fir in the Olympic National Forest, these names bringing back the quietness of the forest to us. In order to do this work, figure she must have judgment, figure she must have anticipation, figure she must have perception, figure she must have coordination, figure she must have a sense of time, bringing back the names of the forest to us and how many we knew there to be. She must use her finger, wrist, and hand dexterities. Shoshone Forest, Snoqualmie Forest, Malala Valley, Starwine Ridge, Bald Hills Ridge, Prairie Creek, Selway River, how many French Peak Creek, the Alopecia. Why did I just say that? That's like, what is alopecia? That's a disease? The Appalachia. These were the Allegheny. The Sierra, the Rockies, untouched, Adirondacks, Cumberland in their pride, Ozark, Cascade, San Andreas, Big Belt Mountains, the Rockies. She must use her mind. She must think to keep her fingers free of the machine. She must think to keep the seam sewn straight. She uses her vision. She must see if the pieces of cloth fit together. She must see the fabric slide through the machine. She uses her willpower. She must keep her mind on this work before her. She must stay here. She must not let her eyes wander. She must not let her mind wander. She must keep her thoughts on the work before her. She must keep working. She must not think of standing up and walking out the door. She must not think too often of the time. She must keep her eyes in focus. She must not think of where she would like to be. She must not dream. She must not use her will, her power here. I didn't actually say that as quickly as it wanted me to, because there's not a single, like, there's, that's all commas, by the way. So the quickness of it was intended. Production current of the years. It was no longer from the vision of material poverty that she turned with the greatest shrinking. She had a sense of deeper impoverishment, of an inner destitution compared to which outward conditions dwindled into insignificance. It was indeed miserable to be poor, to look forward to a shabby, anxious middle age, leading by dreary degrees of economy and self-denial, to gradual absorption in the dingy communal existence of the boarding house. But there was something more miserable still. It was the clutch of solitude at her heart, the sense of being swept away like a stray uprooted growth down the heedless current of the years. Edith Wharton, The House of Mirth. In the summer of 1854, the bark was stripped from its trunk for the purpose of exhibition in the East. At different distances upward, especially at the top, numerous dates and names of visitors have been cut. It is contemplated to cut a circular staircase around this tree. The Yosemite Valley. 7 men stand about the tree, which is now fallen and exposed. 2 hold axes. One, his left foot forward, knees bent, lean back on the heel on his right foot, and rests his right hand on the handle of the axe, whose blade rests on the ledge of the tree. The man himself stands on that same ledge, a ledge that must have been created by the felling of that tree. One can see it juts out from the otherwise flat circle of a trunk, and that the final cuts and wedging must have been done on the other side, so that the side fell first, tearing with it as it fell a greater portion of the trunk, hence this ledge. On the same torn piece stand 3 other men. To the far left, to the far left at the edge, one of them has driven his axe into the tree, so that it stands handle up without his holding it. He supports himself with one hand on the trunk, and another on a plank of wood which rests on the forest floor. As one studies the faces of these 4 men, one feels they are smiling, and then one sees they are only partly smiling, except for one man on the ground in front of the tree, who rests his elbows on the ledge, just where a great, long saw for 2 men is placed, and buckles up the exposed trunk. He is the only man with a real grin, an almost boyish smile, his teeth showing, and in contrast to the other men, with something unnamed reserving them. He seems almost foolish, maybe even a little slow. So there's a little bit of ableism, just in case all the other colonizing behavior wasn't enough. At the right edge, standing on the ground also, but to the side and partially obscured by a seedling tree or a fallen branch, leaning in a proprietary way, with his left hand on the outer bark, his right on his hip, and his head angled outward towards the camera, is the man who must have been the job boss. He has a wry, commanding look, too, one eyebrow up scrutinizing, and he wears a different sort of hat than the other men. He is a bowler, covered with a dust that shows his white in the sepia tint. I like that she wrote that, because I've never seen it. That's such a distinct way of saying that. Let me reread it one more time. He is a bowler, covered with a dust that shows. Oh, never mind. Okay, I thought she was. No, I thought she was being a little bit more critical of whiteness than she actually was. This is what it actually said. His is a bowler covered with a dust that shows white in the sepia tint, and must have been sawdust. On the top of the log, arms folded in the oldest man. He has a mustache which shows white or gray, and he is of a slighter build than the other men. His jaw is set and unsmiling, but his eyes are obscured by his hat brim, and one could not say what he was thinking, nor any of the men, for that matter, except the fact that they have felt it, in all except the man who stands aside, and even some in him. One reads a certain vulnerability into their postures, a shyness, even a fear. On the log itself in the exposed trunk is carved the figure 17 and a half, and afterward the abbreviation for feet. From its size, this tree can be identified as a redwood, and the surrounding trees too have the foliage, bark, and size characteristic of that species. One redwood, a portion of whose bark and trunk can be seen in the left corner, grows at such an angle towards the felled tree, one wonders if branches of the two trees had at one time perhaps touched. In the lower left-hand corner of the photograph, one reads the legend, 18 feet, diameter, redwood tree cut, Noyo River, January 10th. That's my birthday. 1933. Except not that. Union Lumber Company, Fort Bragg, California. So that's everything we need to know about timber, according to Susan Griffin. And now we're going to move into wind. Listen, I've stood being shut up as long as I can. I cannot go on any longer, but they would not let me go. In a little while you will be better. In a little while you will be all right. In a little while you can go home. I can't stand this concrete floor any longer. They told me last spring I could go home, and every hour I was ready. Laura Jefferson, these are my sisters. A journal from the inside of insanity. California, 1984. To those of us who remember the hurricanes of 1960s, with their grimly girlish names and their incredible viciousness, a certain excitement has gone out of life. It turned out that hurricanes could be prevented rather easily. Dr. Revel, A Long View from the Beach, The World in 1984, Volume 1, 1964. In all cases, these terrible storms began over oceans where water had absorbed more energy from the sun than is normal. Shh, 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 don't say anything about it to the nurses, but a patient is running away. Evaporation was very high. Warm, humid air rose with speed from the surface of the sea. As it rose, steam became water, and the heat of this becoming caused the air to rise still higher, which caused more steam to change to water, which caused more rising. See, there she goes. Shh, let her get started. Don't say a word about it. Go back over there and act like you don't know anything. Colder air rushed in where the warm had risen, but this air too became warm and rose and became water and rose. Maybe she can make it. Oh, I hope she does. Won't they be mad when they find out about it? Don't you dare say a word. Won't they be mad? Oh, won't they be mad? Gradually a vortex was formed, and the speed of the air increased enormously, spinning about itself until the disturbance spread tens of thousands of square miles, and a new hurricane had begun its career of murder and destruction. It is suggested that the formation of hurricanes might be stopped if the excess heating and evaporation of the oceans could be stopped. When she got to the trash burner, instead of turning back to the door where the nurse had waited, she dashed off around the corner of the building. It was thought this might be accomplished by spreading a thin layer of reflecting material on the face of the ocean. By the time she reached the road, she had far outdistanced her pursuers, but a car was coming to a stop in her path, and two men stepped out to meet her. This would send the light back before it could illuminate and warm the water. She saw their intention, and without slacking pace, swooped up two rocks from the roadside, but they caught her. She had not often been out of a straitjacket since. And it was then postulated that a substance might be found that would not be dissolved by water, that that would weigh less than the water, that could be produced in large masses with little effort, and that then, in this way, dangerous areas of the sea could be masked from the light which might brew disaster in them. So I can't tell if you would know what's happening when I'm saying certain things. But what Griffin's doing a lot in recent chapters, which are all very short about specific types of material, is obviously she's merging whatever the topic is with some sort of institutionalized control of people assigned female. So it's like she's comparing office work with the way that trees were standardized, the way that all of it is standardized, and she's juxtaposing it and then superimposing it. um, Hopefully that comes across. It's probably incredibly jarring because that's exactly the effect that I think she's going for. Cows, the way we yield. I feel like this is about to be incredibly disturbing, so just be aware of that. I have no idea. I have no idea what she's about to say, but just knowing what I know of cows, get ready. She is a great cow. She stands in the midst of her own soft flesh, her thighs great wide arches, round columns, her hips wide enough for calving, sturdy, rounded, swaying, stupefied mass, a cradle, a waving field of nipples, her udder brushing the grass, a great cow who thinks nothing, who waits to be milked year after year, who delivers up calves, who stands ready for the bull, who is faithful, always there, yielding at the same hour, day after day, that warm substance, the white milk of her eye, staring, trusting, sluggish, bucolic, inert, bovine mind dozing and dreaming, who lays open her flesh like a drone for the use of the world. Appearance. The shoulders are molded within the steeply oval outline which confines the upper part of the body so that their smooth, sharply tapering curve offers no resistance to the fluid progress of the rhythmic contour around the form. The arms continue the shoulder line almost without modification. The hands suggest the pattern of a slender urn from which fingers break into small, elongated serpentines. On the Madonna of the Long Neck, S. Friedberg, Parmigiano, his works in painting. All animals should be taught to pose. Yap, dairy cattle. She must have a feminine appearance and an absence of tendency to lay on fat. She should be in good flesh, but not beefy. Her chest broad and deep, shoulders within, vertebrae and hips prominent and firm, muzzle large, mouth broad, nostrils large and open, head erect, neck slender, her eye alert and placid, her hips wide apart and level, her back straight, her rump long and wide and level, her skin mellow, her hair. Her breeding. Glad us maiden, mother mild, though thine ear thou were with child, Gabriel he said it thee. Anonymous, 13th century lyric. Breeding will, during the next 20 years, become more and more scientific. Already we're seeing the results of the work of geneticists in the poultry industry, and the breeding of dairy cattle is rapidly following on similar lines. Sir William Slater, Farm as a Science-Based Industry, The World in 1984, Volume 1. She is bred for the fat in her milk. The sire is chosen through a measure of the fat in his daughter's milk. That calf whose daughter's milk may be unworthy is eliminated as the sire. He is approached in a standing position. Two slits are made in the bottom of his scrotum. The testicles are drawn out. The cord for each testicle is broken or severed. The end of the cord is touched with a hot iron, or the cord is cut with an instrument which crushes the end of the cord as it is cut. One bull with superior genes may sire thousands of calves without servicing a single cow. The sperm of a sire may be introduced into the vaginal canal of a cow 1,000 miles away. Even the ovum can be transported. One may extract a fertile egg and place it in the belly of a rabbit. This rabbit may be carried great distances or even flown across oceans. Afterward, the egg is extracted from the belly of the rabbit and introduced into the womb of another cow, who will bear the calf. Udder. Vita cujus obera summa repleta manera, tiris albant, uncam tiri policorium. Those whose bleated breasts, filled with a gift from on high, fed for all lands the unique glory of heaven and earth. Bede, Adesto Christi Vesipus. It is not difficult to appreciate that a cow's udder is highly important to a great industry and even to the welfare of the peoples of the world. Yap, dairy cattle. The udder should be held snugly to the body and be of good texture. It should not be too large in size, lest it be subject to injury. Large, meaty udders that hang low and swing back and forth as the animal walks are an inconvenience. They are more difficult to milk than the well-formed udder. Milking. He gives her the kiss she has longed for, and so great is the power of that kiss that at once she conceives and her bosom swells with milk. Bernard of Clairvaux in Cantica, Canticarum. I don't know why. There's certain words my brain can just never make sense of when I look at. I don't know what that's about. There's more than one kind of milking machine. In one using suction. And also, okay, like so whenever I like pause, it's because there's a word that if it is not divided up, I can read and make sense of. But if you divide up a word and you put an apostrophe at the end of it, put the second part of the word on the other part of the page, my brain can't fucking do it. Like it'll be a word I've seen 1,000 times, and if it's like that, I can't make sense of it at all. In one using suction, the tight cups are rigid and have no liners. The upper rim of the teat they literally said that. The upper rim of the teat cups is fitted with a rubber gasket which forms an airtight contact with the base of the teat. Several I'm about to say teat more than I ever have in my whole fucking life. Several sets of teat cups of different sizes are needed to fit different sets of teats. Then a vacuum is applied, which draws the milk from the teat, while a pulsation opens and closes the line. Another machine works with the aid of atmospheric pressure and uses a teat cup with both a rigid outer wall and an inner wall of elastic rubber, with an airtight chamber between these two. If the cow experiences difficulty in letting down her milk, she may be injected with oxytocin, the hormone science has discovered to be responsible for this process. When did they find oxytocin? Was that really not that long ago? In the grand scheme of the 70s. I don't know when it was actually found. I never looked into when it was created. So this is Women and Nature by Susan Griffin. The roaring inside her. This is we're on a section about cows. You kind of just gotta stick around and see what she's got going on. Oh yes, that was the end of that page. Preparing the cow for milking will take 0.42 minutes. It will take 0.2 minutes to rise and attach the milking units, 0.2 minutes to replace the teat cups on the cow, 1.27 minutes to machine strip the cow, 0.06 minutes to move the milking cart from cow to cow, and 0.18 minutes to replace the head on the pail. Both the movement of the cart and the manipulation of the pail can be eliminated if all stalls are equipped with units attached to one central machine, with pipes running from each stall to the milk room. Habits. The cow may begin to show bad habits. She may suck her own teats or those of other cows. Secure a metal anti-sucking device and fasten it on the cow's nostrils, or put a halter on her, and on the halter strap a nose strap covered by another strap through which sharp nails point outward. She may kick. Secure a set of hobbles and fasten these on her legs. Birthing. Lordy lordy, them tribulations. Oh, okay, I see now. Okay. I think at least. This is an accent that I'm not familiar with because I grew up near Chicago. One of these here women's was my auntie, and she scarcely called to me. She called to me and her whooping her because she was her breeder woman and brought in the chili a 12-month. It's like, okay, so it's like language that like is so phonetic but written in a way that you're supposed to say it, but I can't make sense of how it is supposed to actually, so I'm just saying it and that's not coming out right and I feel it. Monst It was by Martha Jackson in 1850 in Alabama narratives. And it's about cows. That's what we got. Mary has wept. Mary has wept. Weeping is fecund. There never has been a sterile tear, as the rain that falls from on high irrigates the countryside and prepares it to receive, in all fertility, the crops and seed and fruit that will in time come to ripeness. So will happen in the realizing of the Spirit. Archbishop of Syracuse, Il Pianto di Maria a Siracusa. Every 12 months the cow should be calved. When the young girl is bleeding at her time of the month, she hides her condition. She is careful that no blood shows on her clothing. Her peak period for the production of milk. When the woman has a child growing in her womb, she may hide this, or she may hide herself. Occurs between the third and eighth week after calving. She may speak of a child, but she does not speak of her womb or vulva. After this period, the production of milk declines daily. During her labor, she lies in a room alone. A cow should be permitted. At certain times, the pressure of her blood is measured. To remain dry, or the beat of the heart of her child is listened to, or the width, for 4 to 8 weeks, of her cervix is calibrated. After calving, she is denied any relief of her pain, or she is drugged until she seems to sleep. She is told that in awakened state she may be dangerous to herself or her child. The productive life of a dairy cow is from 3.6 to 7.5 years. The pain of our labor is imaginary. It is our nature to be hysterical, we are told. The pain of our labor is natural. It is our nature to suffer, we hear. The pain of our labor is pleasure. This is how we become women, it is said. And the average productive life of a cow lasts 5 years. During the birth, her feet are put in metal stirrups. After this, the cow is no longer worth her keep. The calf. I never saw my mother to know her as such, more than 4 or 5 times in my life, and each of these times was very short in duration and at night. She was hired by a Mr. Stewart who lived about 12 miles from my home. She made her journeys to see me in the night, traveling the whole distance on foot after the performance of her day's work. She was a field hand, and a whipping is the penalty of not being in the field at sunrise. I do not recollect of ever seeing my mother by the light of day. Frederick Douglass, an American slave. When the calf is born, her hands are strapped to the table. She is allowed to remain with her mother for 24 or some cases 36 hours. She may not touch the infant during birth. The calf drinks the colostrum, the first milk, which science has determined will aid in her growth. But after this first milk, the doctor who delivers the child does not look at her. He covers her vulva with a sheet and feels the sheet for the head of the infant. She is prepared for her mother and placed in isolation from any grown cow. Or he shines a bright light between her thighs, but he does not allow her to see his hands as they turn inside her. On rare occasions, a calf may be allowed to run with her mother in the fields, but normally separation is necessary so that the calf will learn to drink from a pail. Teaching this is a difficult task. All food must be withheld from the calf for 24 hours. Then place your fingers in her mouth and she will suckle, and then this hand with the calf's mouth around it must be placed in the bucket of milk. And when the child is born, and then the calf will suck in some milk, it shall be given the name. She may rise of the father. Her head from the bucket and refuse to drink. Again, fingers must be placed in her mouth. We lie alone. Again, her head must be placed in the bucket. The pains come on. They come closer and closer together. Some of us cry for our mothers. Some of us scream angrily at God. We are strapped down. We are injected with substances. Some of us are frightened. Some of us die. We grow sick. We lose consciousness. Pain carries us away. The cows speak. Oh no, yeah, this is I'm reading Women and Nature. The rage, the roaring inside her. There should be more rage. That's more 2016 onward as far as readings are concerned. At the sight of their mothers, the calves skip so wildly that their pens can no longer hold them. They break loose, lolling all the while and gabooling. Homer. We are the cows. We with our large brown eyes and our soft fur there was once something called beauty we were a part of. It is this we remember when we bellow. When we stand still and gaze at you. Our noses were wet, so we know we once nuzzled you as you pulled with your hands on us, as the milk rushed warm against our bellies, rushed through us, sighing within us as it flowed, or as the tongues of our calves licked our teats, and our skin shivered, and the calf's mouth closed over us, and you remembered the shaking body as it slid from our thighs, and as we licked it, amazing and new over its skin, licked it clean, as now it licks us, nuzzles us, its brown eyes staring into our skin, our eye, skin and fur, one against the other, the one and the same, one shiver and one sigh, one warm rush of sweetness in the mouth, and the soft bodies growing nightly, soft against ours. To run with us, you remember that once we stood together in the fields. You remember what we were then, what it was then to be part of our beauty. We are mothers. A woman who weeps always becomes, in the very act, a mother. And if Mary weeps besides the cross of Jesus, I can tell you that her weeping was fertile and made her a mother. Archbishop of Syracuse. Il Pianto di Maria a Syracuse. When we awaken, when we awaken, there is a child given to us. We are mothers. We feel a pain where the vulva has been cut. We are mothers. We feel that the skin of a child is soft. The face to us in sleep is beautiful. The small body lying against our body vulnerable. The cries move us. Secretly remove the child's clothing, the blanket, the diaper. We fondle the body. We love this body because we are part of the body. We are mothers. We are heavy with bodies. If men bore children, we imagine they would burst from their heads, not their asses, and be fully grown and dressed and godlike with no need to eat, no substance pouring from their substance. But we are mothers. She is a great cow. She stands in the midst of her own soft flesh with hips wide enough for calving, who lays open her flesh like a drone for the use of the world. And we labor. We labor like. The next one is about mules. So the white man throw down the load and tell, oh, there's an N word in here. Man to pick it up. He handed to his woman folks. The N word woman is the mule of the world, so far as the eye can see. Oh, it's Zora Neale Hurston. I should have known. Their eyes were watching God. Okay, it sounded familiar. We are the mules, offspring of the he ass and the mare. We cannot procreate our own kind together. Nature did not create us. We were bred for domestic labor. Though we work hard, even though no, I'm thinking. Never mind. Okay, I'm gonna continue. I was thinking because I know that there's a lot of people who actually didn't. It's like people meaning black women in particular who didn't actually talk like the way that they were they were made to sound. Some people obviously did have accents because they were from specific areas. I don't remember if Zora Neale Hurston was actually had that accent. So even though this is obviously just she wrote the story and then this wasn't her, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Anyway, though we work hard, our very name signifies abstinence. Why can't I say this word? It's like abstinence, but with a Y at the end. Abstinency. My brain. No, that's not right. Abstinency. I guess that's it. And stupidity. And I hate any word that insults people by intelligence. Yet that is the very nature of our work. Obstinate and stupid. We have the strength of staying power. Though our labor is necessary, and though we were bred for that purpose, no one envies us. No one yearns to do the work we do as finely as we do it. We are despicable if we go on cleaning the toilets, washing the floors, dusting the furniture, lugging the groceries, cutting the beans, folding the laundry, if we go on burying the children, washing their faces, their asses, their noses, carrying their feces away, feeding them from our own bodies. If we go on, our hair pulled up in bandanas, our heads smelling of garlic, our noses filled with dust, our backs bent close to the earth, our ears hearing only inarticulate cries, our eyes hard with obstinate labor, our mouths shut for all but necessity, our brains only calculators for simple quantities. 3 cups of flour, 10 yards of flannel, 14 pounds simmered in butter, vinegar and rags, water and rags, pins in the soap, vegetables on Tuesday, cotton in hot water, wool in cold. If we go on, changing the sheets, administering dosages. We are despicable, and if we stop in our tracks, speech not having been bred in us, we articulate nothing. Our nature is mysterious, mulish, but that is what we are bred for. We are a useful beast. You will feed us and house us in exchange for our labors, say, but difficult to handle still. Men count mules among their riches and among their godlike accomplishments, to have ordered nature, to have made an animal. And we know we are not logical. The mule balks for no apparent reason, for no rhyme or reason. We remember weeping suddenly for no good reason, spiteful and kicking, angry out of nowhere, like a hurricane, with almost no warning and incomprehensible, brutish. And despite all the solutions we apply, and all the scrubbing of cloth and wood and porcelain, still there are always stains, and no matter how often we wash, washing the smell of excrement from our hands so we may prepare food, washing the smell of food from our hands, still the odor stays. And because she is bestial, not fit for thought, she is clumsy with the dullness of labor. But the mule does not have a certain grace. She is sure-footed. She can turn with the plow harnessed to her, her weight pulling the blade through the soil, on the steep side of a mountain, not sliding or stumbling at the incline. She can follow men up through the steepish mountain pass, carrying food and water, so that the mule driver is a so that the mule driver is as necessary to an army as is the gunner. And is this grace bred into her? Bred or not, it is the grace of labor. It at least is a strength and has that spare beauty of function of things that are what they are, the definition, the line, the movement, essential. And if we find this grace through our labor, with our fingers finding the loose thread in the garment, our ears late at night hearing the cries no one else hears, catching the milk in the pot as it begins to boil, the body bending over rocking the pieces of cloth sewn together in patterns, the taste of thyme with rosemary and the different odor of oregano, or the grace of crises, the fever, the steady application of code cloths, the grace of economy, the soup of leftovers, the reuse of the bed covering in a skirt, or the seeing of the barely seeable, the unnamed, the slight difference in the expression of the eyes, the mood, the slow opening, the listening, the small possibility, barely audible, nodding, almost inarticulate, yet allowing articulation, words, healing, the eyes acknowledge, this grace of the unspoken, spoken in movement. The hand reaches, the blanket is wrapped around. The arms hold this mulish daily grace without which we do not choose to continue, and if we find this, we have something of our own. This is our secret grace, unnamed, invisible, surviving. That was like literally 2 pages. I don't think anything has hit me like that. The show horse. The bit. Be ye not like to horses and mules, which have no understanding, whose mouths must be held up with bit and bridle, or bridle. I always forget what the horse's shit is called. Lest they fall upon thee. The Book of Common Prayer. The right thumb of the rider holds the center of the bridle in front of the horse's face and above her head so that the bit is in front of the horse's mouth. The right hand is placed under the horse's jaw. If the horse does not open her mouth, when the bit touches her teeth, if she clenches her teeth, the rider presses his left forefinger on the toothless bars of the lower jaw, which will make the horse open her mouth and accept the bit. The thicker the bit, the milder its effect on the mouth of the horse. The bit should neither pull up the corners of the mouth nor touch the teeth. The noseband must be tight, but not so tight that the horse cannot breathe, and she must be able to accept tidbits from the rider's hand. The throat latch, however, should be fastened loosely. Speaking of a throat latch, I forgot to grab. Okay, so I like had to go to in-person meetings today for the first time in a while. And whenever I do that, I bring a water bottle, but then uh, I have to clean it because I went into public. So I forgot to refill a water bottle. That means we're gonna take like however long it takes me to fill a water bottle up. I'll be right back. Um, keep in mind we're talking about horse stuff, and if it's anything like the last section, it's gonna be a good one if I have any guesses. BRB. Just realized that it's. I'm gonna reread that because I just realized that it was muted on the Twitch. Nature. The horse is by nature a very lazy animal, whose idea of heaven is an enormous field of lush grass in which he can graze undisturbed until his belly is full, and after a pleasant doze can start filling himself up all over again. Captain Elwyn Hartley Edwards, from paddock to saddle. A perfect hostess is a household with servants, gives the impression that she has nothing whatever to do with household arrangements, which apparently run themselves. In a servantless house, or okay, household, she has the cleaning, marketing, and as much cooking as possible done in advance, so that an absolute minimum of her time is spent on these chores while her guests are with her. Emily Post, Etiquette. It is the horse's extreme sensitivity to pain, especially in the mouth, but also all over her body, which allows the rider to control her with the pressure of his own weight, the movements of his legs, and with the aid of the bit, the bridle, and the rein, the whip, the riding whip, the long whip, and the spur. It is the timorous nature of the animal coupled with a sensitivity that allows her to be trained. The horse is not aggressive. Her only defense is to flee. Therefore, the horse reacts to pain by running away from the pain. If the rider stands at the horse's head and taps her flank with a long whip, the horse will move away from the discomfort. In addition, the horse has a prodigious memory, is a social animal, has a desire to please and a need for security, and all these qualities are used in her training. Her faults are nervousness, laziness, and an excitability that is at all times predictable. Or, sorry, unpredictable. Education. Differences emerge too in the instinctual disposition, which gives a glimpse of the later nature of women. A little girl is, as a rule, less aggressively defiant and self sufficient. She seems to have a greater need for being shown affection, and on that account to be more dependent and pliant. Sigmund Freud, Femininity. To train horses, it is essential that we have a very clear understanding of the way in which their small minds work and appreciate how limited they are in this department. Captain Elwyn Hartley Edwards, From Paddock to Saddle. Oh, how lovely is her ignorance. Jean Jacques Rousseau, Emile. The horse is not designed for carrying weight. She has a structure similar to a rectangular box, with a leg at each corner, and the rider places his weight on the weakest part, the unsupported center. Her legs and feet are not designed for trotting on hard roads or galloping, and jumping is entirely unnatural to the horse. But through an arduous process of training, the body, ill designed for this task, can become a carrier of weights and learn to adjust her own balance for that purpose. Therefore, the body of the horse must be reshaped. A horse in the correct form has a rounded top line, accompanied by a lower head and neck, and hind legs engaged beneath the body. To achieve this form, the teacher uses exercise, strapping, and encourages higher head carriage. Thus formed, the horse carries weight and can develop paces, balance, and movements at the bidding of first the teacher and then the rider. The horse has a natural curvature of the spine, perhaps as a result of the fetal position of the unborn foal. This curvature prevents the animal from moving on a straight line so that the hind feet follow exactly the track of the forefeet. Therefore, the horse is trained and exercises to correct this natural crookedness by increasing the flexibility in the lumbar vertebrae. This straightening improves the mechanical efficiency of the horse. The mechanical efficiency of the horse. Time to drink water. I'll drink some water to that. Everything is mechanized. I can already tell, like, without realizing, because, like, I've read a number of things by Griffin, but I'd never read this. And, I'm really liking that she pulls so many seemingly disparate things together in the way that is very, it's very media ecology of her. And again, that's why I argue that feminists and critical cultural scholars writ large were the first media ecologists. Because they've been talking about language as media for a very long time. Grooming. She is brushed all over her body with a dandy brush in the direction that the fur grows. She is brushed with the body brush in round, scrubbing movements. She is polished with a linen cloth until she shines. Her eyes, her lips, her nostrils, under her tail are washed. Bits of sand, dust, manure, pebbles, mud, grass, weeds are taken from her hoofs with a pick. Oil is rubbed into her foot. She is clipped, so that she does not have the naked look of a fresh cut. This is done before the show. The scissors move against the fur, leaving only her mane, her tail, and a saddle mark. The groom places a saddle on her back and clips around it so that when the saddle is removed, a saddle of her fur remains on her back. And now that she is clipped, her rider must protect her. The grease that was natural to her, that protected her from the cold and the wet, has been removed. She is vulnerable to the weather. She must provide for her He must provide for her a warm woolen blanket to put under her and a lined rug to put over her. She may have felt her fetlocks clipped from showing in summer. On certain occasions, good form requires that her mane and her tail be braided. Her hair is sewn or tied with ribbons. What are you saying? It was like, every once in a while I'll be like across the room and Twinkle will meow at me and I'm like, what? What can I do for you? Dressage. Girls ought to be active and diligent, nor is that all. They should also be early subjected to restraint. This misfortune, if it really be one, is inseparable from their sex, nor do they ever throw it off but to suffer more cruel evils. They must be subject all their lives to the most constant and severe restraint, which is that of decorum. It is therefore necessary to accustom them early to such confinement that it may not afterwards cost them too dear, and to the suppression of their caprices they may the more readily submit to the will of others. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Emile. She must not swing her arms as though they were dangling ropes. She must not switch herself this way, and that she must not shout, and she must not, while wearing her bridal veil, smoke a cigarette. Emily Post, Etiquette. The teacher should insist that the horse stand still and on all four legs during the process of mounting and until asked to move on by the rider. Fidgeting on the spot or moving on without command must not be tolerated. Alois Podjosky, the riding teacher. The movements that the show horse executes have no use in themselves, but exist as part of the show of dressage, manifesting how obedient she is, how well she keeps her balance, how complete is the mastery of her rider. To go large, she rides straight against the walls of the riding school, taking the corners precisely on an arc of a circle of 3 steps. The circle is performed in either half sector of the school by inscribing a circle of 16 to 18 meters. A volte is the smallest circle, or maybe it's a vault. It's just a vault. There's no accent on the E. I don't know why I said it like what there was. A vault is the smallest circle the horse may perform. It is 6 steps in diameter and may be done in the corners, along the walls, or on the center line. The vault is performed only once. The half vault and change consists of a half circle and a straight line on which the horse is led at an angle of 45 degrees back to the wall where her position is changed. Serpentines all along the wall may be ridden as single or double loops. For the single loop, the horse, after passing the second corner of the short side, is taken on a single track approximately 5 meters from the wall, thus describing a flat arc, and halfway through the school she is taken back in the same manner. For the double loop, the curve of the single is repeated, but the horse does not move from the wall more than 3 meters. Both arcs must be of the same size. The half pass is performed on parallel tracks, usually on a diagonal of the school. The horse's head is bent slightly at the pole in the direction she's going. The rest of her spine is held straight. If her shoulders move laterally more than her haunches, she will move on circular tracks, and this is a classic direct rotation. If her haunches move more than her shoulders and on circular tracks, she does a classic inverse rotation. A common fault in the half pass occurs when the horse's quarters are pushed ahead of the shoulders. I can't picture any of this. I don't know if it's helping for any of you, but I can't. Another occurs when the horse falls on the leading shoulder in loss of balance, owing to her not being straight. Difficulties in training a horse to perform are these: nervousness or laziness, qualities which it has been decided are part of the horse's nature. Calmness and patience are recommended for the former. For the latter, the long whip. Physical problems may be a long back or weakened hindquarters, making it either difficult or painful for the horse to carry a rider or train for long hours. These may be eliminated partially by gymnastic training. I said that weird. Gymnastic training. Another difficulty is the oversensitive mouth of most high-spirited horses. This necessitates a light use of the bit. If the horse lets her tongue hang out, this is counted as a serious fault. This may be prevented by a manipulation of the bit. Whenever the horse performs well, the rider offers her a lump of sugar. The collaboration of horse and rider is essential to performance. When it is possible, a nervous horse should be led by a calm rider, and a phlegmatic horse by a nervous rider. As one, the ego's relation to the id might be compared with that of a rider to his horse. Sigmund Freud, the dissection of the psychical, I hate that word, I've seen it only a number of times, but the dissection of the psychical personality. The onlooker should have the impression that two creatures are fused together, one thinking and the other executing the thoughts. Elos Pada, I can never say this person's last name. I think it might be like Polish or something, but I could be wrong. Podhachki, the writing teacher. The writer loves his horse. He dreams of her at night. He sees her sometimes in a fury of wildness. Her excitable frenzy is pouring over his body in waves. His head tossing becomes her head, the silky black mane on the pillows, large nostrils flaring, the long neck flailing back and forth, throwing the sheaths to the floor, hoofs kicking at the walls, and one eye, wild staring, unknowing, hurtling now, 700 pounds, crushing through the wall, galloping blood bright at the teeth where the bit has been torn away, a white frothy sweat, running through the dark night all night. He is not the rider, but the horse, riding, riding, riding. But in the morning she is calm. She is his mare. He speaks softly to her. She is supple. She responds quickly to his least movement. They have developed a silent language. If he presses with his left thigh, a subtle movement, imperceptible to the onlooker, she moves immediately to the right, her feet graceful, her head high, executing with exquisite grace. He barely whispered wait, with exquisite grace, his barely whispered will. It is as if she reads his mind and peacefully lets his thoughts enter and guide her body. They are beautiful together, seemingly effortless, artful. Her back seems part of his ass. Her legs are his legs. They ride as one. Oh, thank you for the heart me stuff. The stable. The stable and the return to it after work is the greatest reward we can give our horse. Captain Elwyn Hartley Edwards from paddock to saddle. When does the horse first know that the rider has left her side? Even when his weight is no longer on her back, his hand may be connected to her mouth by the rein, by the bit. And even when his hand is off the rein, his eyes may be upon her. When can she be certain he is gone? Does she listen to his footsteps as they recede? Then does she remember? Does she remember that she has a tongue, that she can push it out between her teeth and over her lips? Does she feel a sense of dread as she lets it out? I'm like getting actually physically like I don't know about y'all, but even just hearing myself say this makes me want to burst out in sobs. Like I am actually this is distressing. Woo! Does she feel a sense of shame apart from the rider when she rolls on her back? Is this a private ecstasy? Is she in fear of being discovered? Does she dread and not give this dread a name? Does she love the dark privacy of her stall? The smell of hay newly laid, the food that the food the food that is brought every day at the same precise hours, always fresh, always familiar, never changed. Does she love even the sound of the chain on her halter as it is run through the manger ring? And when she is led out finally to the riding school or the track, even at her moment of triumph, even after she has waited for this, as the flowers are put over her silky neck, does she dream of the stable? Does she dream of returning? Love. Love gets its name, amor, from the word for hook, amos, which means to capture or to be grounded. Andreas Capellian. I can never say that fucking person's name. You know the one. The art of courtly love. Though she loves her stable because of the comfort, because she can always count on it to be there, because it is her private world, and it is where she rests and is fed, she waits there. It is in the stable that she waits for her rider. It is only when her rider appears that she leaves her stable, that she moves. She loves to please her rider. It is her rider who rubs her flanks, who carries bits of food in the white flesh of his palm, who speaks to her softly, kindly. It is her rider who has trained all her movements, her rider who tells her what she must do from one moment to the next. Her rider who possesses a secret knowledge of a series of memorable movements, whose purpose she cannot decipher, a knowledge above her capacity to understand, Her writer who knows how to produce food and pleasure, for she is so entirely stupid and helpless that she cannot even feed herself without his aid, let alone know what or where to go to do. The horse has no wish for freedom. She waits the occasional visit of her master, who day after day seems more powerful, more wise, taking on a majesty the horse would never dream of for herself. When he is in her presence, her thoughts are riveted on him. She likes no one else to ride her. Is this not love the horse is feeling? But she is mute. The writer has named her, and so he must also name her feelings. He decides that she loves him. That's it. That's the whole section. That was a great job. Good job, Stephen Griffin. Her body. I wish they all had but one body so that we could burn them all at once in one fire. Henry Bouget, Decor de Sorcerie, which we can only presume is some witch shit. So we're about to talk about witch burning. Her body is a vessel of death. Her body is a lure. Her charm is a trap. She is irresistible. Her voice is deceit. Her word a plot. Her gesture a snare. She plans her seduction. She cannot help herself. Her mind is a theater of seduction. She is incapable of other thought. Her body was made for seduction. For her, all other thought is a mask, a guise for her single purpose. Her skill is ultimate. She will stop at nothing. Underneath grace she is grasping, beneath her singing is a siren. Her mouth sucks. The air around her becomes a whirlpool. She is treacherous. Closeness with her is drowning, intimacy, suffocation. She blinds. The innocent cannot see her real shape. Behind her suppliant, yeah, that's right, flesh is a maw, a devouring hole in abyss. Death, destruction, darkness without light, nothingness. She will eat the flesh she appears to love. Her hunger is never satisfied. To yield to her one demand is to yield to endless demanding. In her is a depth so profound she darkens all light. The voyager never finds his way out. She is an infinite ocean. Inside her body is hell, burning. When she is angry, all life stands still in terror. At the gate of her womb is a wound which bleeds freely. It is a wound that will never heal. She is mutilated. She is damaged. She will never forgive existence for this. Her every act is an act of mutilation, of distortion. She is a plague, a disease. The blood from her wound will sour milk. It will spoil fruit, or the fermentation in wine. It will break the strings of a violin. It will poison food, cause disease, death and battle, impotence and shrinking. The color of her blood is a color of calamity, of fire, of evil. The smell is offensive. The smell is a warning. She loves blood. She asks for slaughter. She asks for sacrifice. Her sinister wish is for castration, for more wounding, for endless mutilation. Her vulva has teeth. Her stare can petrify. Her womb is a grave. She cannot help herself. She devours even herself. Her passion is endless, without reason, without boundary, existing only for itself, careless, arrogant, lavish, indulgent, mindless, inexorable, cruel, selfish. She will not stop of her own will. Her body will not stop being. If she were set free to do as she willed, her body would never stop. All being would be destroyed except her being, which at last her hunger would not spare. She would consume herself, and her body is the seed of nothingness. Rad. We discover one day with our hands on the pot of boiling water, seeing it in our mind's eye wash endlessly out over the familiar face speaking to us. We are angry. The pot moves. The pot appears to move across space. We are stunned. The pot holds danger, burning, pain. Our hands must become malevolent, evil, destroying. When we see this, our hands go limp. They are paralyzed. The pot stops in midair. The boiling water which we had dreamed of throwing over him pours over us. At first we feel nothing, only the wetness, the red skin, the blisters. We are in pain. The pain is excruciating. We cannot escape it. We cannot escape. It hounds us. It tells us we should not exist. It is everywhere. We our own voices screaming. We hear our own voices. There is nowhere we can hide. The pain is inescapable, telling us over and over of our murderous impulses, our appetite for death. We begin to feel the heat of our own bodies. Our thighs close together. The lips of our vulvas swell. We feel the outlines of our breasts, their weight, the nipples inside of our blouses. There is wetness in the dark space inside us. We can smell ourselves. We begin to think of hands, of skin, of tongue, of hair. We want to rock. We want to shut our eyes. We want to press the insides of our bodies together, our lips together, to suck. We feel the blood flowing in our vulvas. We become voracious. We stop thinking. Our thoughts fly into shapes, into colors. Our mouths open. We hear ourselves. We hear our sounds, our breathing. We shut our eyes. We hear our breathing. These sounds overwhelm us. We can think of nothing else. Passion has taken us over. Our bodies have possessed us. There is no place we can hide. They follow us everywhere with their beating, with their wetness. They are unmerciful. They lead every thought to themselves. They enter dreams. They take us into darkness, and in darkness they seize us totally. We yield. We forget our names. We lose ourselves forever. One day we look down and see we have become gigantic. Our nipples are long and brown. Our breasts have become huge. Our bellies are swollen so large we cannot see our vulvas. Each day we grow larger. We feel this growing has no respect for the inside of our bodies. The inside of our bodies. We begin to feel we might burst. We become afraid. We fear we are possessed with violence. She finds blood streaked between her legs and in the toilet. She finds blood on her dress, blood all over her clothing. She cries. What she washes away comes back. She wraps up paper towels and puts them between her legs. She tries to wash the blood from her dress. There are stains, long pink shapes. She dresses again. She ties her sweater around her waist so that you will not see the pink shapes. She washes her hands, takes the red from under her nails. She cleans the toilet, the floor. When she walks, she feels towels between her legs. She worries that the edge of them will show through her dress, that you will know she is wearing them. She walks home as quickly as she can. She will let no one walk with her. She finds her mother. She whispers to her mother what has happened. Her mother's face is flushed. She takes the girl to the back of the house. They lock themselves in the bathroom. She removes her clothing. The men are not allowed in the back of the house while they do their work. Her mother soaks the girl's clothing. She gives her napkins to put between her legs. The girl bathes. She washes all over. Finally, the women emerge. There is no sign of blood, only on the napkin, which is shielded, which is private, which is hidden, which will be wrapped in paper and in a bag be discarded. They do not say what they were doing, mother and daughter. Before your embarrassed faces, they kept their secret. See, I actually read it as the opposite, Ed. I read it like it was vengeful, like it was actually like it was righteous. That's it was power. Yeah. Skin. There was the leg screw or Spanish boot, much used in Germany and Scotland, which squeezed the calf and broke the shin bone in pieces, and the lift, which hoisted the arms fiercely behind the back, and there was the ram or witch hair, a seat of spikes seated from below. H.R. Trevor Roper, The European Witch Craze. Before I applied the pressure bandages to prevent swelling, I took a final look at my work. The woman before me was no longer 45, but a lovely person with the taut, firm beauty of youth. Dr. Robert Allen Franklin, beauty surgeon. No one ever speaks of a beautiful old woman. Simone de Beauvoir, The Coming of Age. Our faces begin to die. We are full of defect. Our brows, for instance, are lined. For traverse wrinkles of the forehead, the skin above the frontal hairline is excised, and the lines are eliminated by lifting the skin of the forehead in a resection. Our flesh is aging. Our chins sag. For anastosis of the chin. A resection of the tissue is performed which tightens the skin in a transverse direction to elevate the point of the chin. We call the furrows over the bridge of our nose worry lines. We try not to worry. We try not to move the muscles of our faces. For glabular grabular glabular wrinkles, silicone is injected into the dermis and beneath it in small amounts. We are wizened. Our lips are pursed. For lip wrinkles, surgical abrasion is indicated. Our cheeks and our temples sag. An incision is made from the juncture of the earlobes to the cheek. Our jaws droop. Our necks have folds. An incision in the cheek to the supratragal notch. Like, what the fuck? We find wrinkles cover our faces. A solution is made of 3 cc of 88% USP phenol, 2 cc distilled water, 8 to 5 drops of croton oil, and 12 to 18 drops of septisol. A cotton-tipped applicator is dipped into the solution. The excess fluid is blotted away with a sterile sponge. The solution is painted onto the surface of the skin to be peeled. The skin is stroked lightly until there is a frosty appearance to the surface. The skin is blotted dry. A tape mask of waterproof tape is applied. The face is kept motionless for 24 or 48 hours. The face may burn or swell. A dry crust is allowed to form after the tape is removed. The crust is soaked away with a warm saline compress. Antibiotic lubricant is applied. Our hands reach to our faces. We lay the insides of our fingers on our cheeks. Our palms cradle our chins, skin against skin. We feel the blood rush in our temples. We blink. Our eyelashes brush against the lines in our hands. We breathe through the spaces between our fingers. This is strangeness. Our hands are familiar. We know these hands, but we do not know these faces. This skin, its smoothness, its tightness. We shut our eyes. We try to turn away from ourselves. None of this fear of ourselves shows back to us in the face we see reflected before us. Hair. Perhaps nothing was so effective as the tormentum in it did that thing where it split up the word that I'd never seen before now. Insomniae, the torture of artificial sleeplessness. Even those stout enough to resist the estrapade would yield to this slower but more certain torture and confess themselves to be witches. H.R. Trevor Roper, The European Witch Craze. Oh, thank you for the. Oh, nice. It's nice to see you. It's been a while. I've been kind of MIA, writing all my life down for the last 33 years. So thanks for the rose. When I think of women, it is their hair which first comes to my mind. The very idea of womanhood is a storm of hair. Black hair, red hair, brown hair, golden hair, and always with a greedy little mouth somewhere between the mirage of beauty. Oh, behind the mirage of beauty. Guess who said that? It's Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche! My sister and I. That's what he wrote that in. Which feels a little weird. Fine light hairs covering our backbones. Soft hair over our forearms. Our upper lips. The body takes on the adult contour of hips and breasts. Hair tickling our legs. Lying against our cheeks. The accessory reproductive organs reach maturity. Hair rounding over vulvas. Hair curling from our underarms. Our noses. The uterus descends into the pelvis. Hair springs. Hair surprises us, betrays us, our secrets. A solution is applied to the skin, excising each strand. The solution is applied again. The solution is applied again. The solution is we are covered with black horsehair. The follicle is decomposed at the root with an electric current. Hair grows wild all over our bodies. Breast. One might also be grilled on the cachalots and have one's fingernails pulled off. With a turkis or pincers or needles might be driven up their heads in the quick. H.R. Trevor Roper, The European Witch Craze. The female breast has been called the badge of femininity. In order for the breast to be aesthetically pleasing, it should be a relatively firm, full breast which stands out from the chest wall and states with certainty, I am feminine. John Ransom Lewis, Jr. There was there was another one. MD, Atlas of Aesthetic Plastic Surgery. I was feeling pretty well pleased with myself. I had just taken the after pictures of a bust operation you would have to see to believe. Dr. Robert Allen Franklin, beauty surgeon. The surgeons view the female breast from above, from below. The surgeons say the breasts must look their best if the female is standing, sitting, or lying supine. They remind themselves that it is in the supine position that the breast is most likely to be seen naked. They say that as well as having a pleasing contour, size, and symmetry, no scars should be visible. They see they see that when the female lies supine, her breasts fall laterally. Thus they conclude that incisions lateral to the breast are less likely to be seen than incisions medial to the breast. In order to reduce the size of the breast, they say, lateral incisions are not so obvious as scars. The physician looks for a material with which to increase the size of the breast. He is determined. He is obsessed. He will not accept failure. When other doctors say it cannot be done, he becomes more determined. He finds a new material in the cockpit of an airplane. He tests it for hours. He makes it from raw material, but he cannot make it to the right dimension. He tries another material. The body rejects this material. The body eats this material. He finds other materials, those that are too hard, those that do not hold their shape. He works at night, in stolen hours, sacrificing sleep. He prays. At last, he finds the material made to the right dimension. He tests it endlessly. It is impervious. He finds to time, to temperature, to moisture, to body fluids, to bacteria. It is easily shaped by scissors, easily sewn into place, easily molded. One morning he molds the plastic in the shape of a breast. In 20 minutes he makes a 1 in 1 half-inch incision under the breast, slips it in the plastic, and sews the incision. His patient is transformed. He writes later, in 30 minutes. To enlarge the breast, the surgeons say incisions may be made at the side of the breast near the fold around the areola in the shadow of the underbreast, or on the chest under the breast, but the least visible incision, they say, will be in the shadow of the underbreast. Clitoris. In the water torture, the questioned low water was poured down the throat of the accused, along with a soft cloth to close so many words. A soft cloth to cause choking. The cloth was pulled out quickly so that the entrails would be torn. The so I wasn't anticipating so much torture. Sorry. Like Russell Hope Robbins, The Encyclopedia of Witchcraft and Demonology. Speaking of witchcraft, hold on, I just remember that my blinds are still open. I'm only gonna read like a little bit more anyway, because I got like 10 minutes left of reading night. We're gonna read about, oh nice, there's only two, so we're gonna read about the clitoris, the vulva, and the womb, and then we're gonna call it a night. So it's only like 2 or 3 pages left. But hold on, let me close this, because I'm fixating on it. Be right back for like 2 seconds. Or however long it takes me to close the blinds. Gotta put the be right back thing to good use, you know? You can have a dance party as I'm reading, by the way. That is always encouraged. The only bodily organ which is really regarded as inferior is the atrophied penis, a girl's clitoris. Sigmund Freud. The dissection of the psychical personality. Freud was a fucking fool. Enlargement of the clitoris sometimes accompanied by a degree of induration, at other times by a relaxed flabby state of its tissues, and always attended by a high abnormal irritability, is for the most part brought on by self-abuse. Its radical cure is fortunately in our hands. Isaac Baker Brown on surgical diseases of woman. We are not told of the existence of the clitoris. The existence of the clitoris is denied to us. We feel, but we have no name for what is feeling in us. We say nothing of this feeling. The denial of this feeling is not called a lie. The denial of the clitoris is not called a lie. The denial of the clitoris is never spoken. No one speaks of the clitoris as existing or as not existing. The labia are folded back. The hood is located. At the beginning of the vulva is found. We are told that we do not have this feeling. We are told that this feeling in us is excessive. We are told that excessive feeling is a sign of illness, a mass. Deep pins are passed underneath the mass, and elastic ligatures are tied around the mass and under the pins. We deny having this feeling. We are terrified that we might have this feeling. We bury even the memories of this feeling. We give it no name. We keep it secret from ourselves. The mass is excised. Tissue posterior to it is sectioned. Deep sutures are tied as the pins are removed. We do not know we keep secrets. We forget how much we deny. We say we despise learning. We say we despise knowledge. We recognize that we are dumb. We are not good at inventing names. We cannot tell you what it would be to touch truth, to cut away lies. Damn. Vulva. No limits hindered the ingenuity of the witch judge. One of these creatures, Judge Sculties at Irwit, cut open a woman's feet and poured hot oil into the wounds. Russell Hope Robbins, The Encyclopedia of Witchcraft and Demonology. Lucy spent a whole hour crouched on her knees and elbows. 40'd? What the hell? It's in sick, so it's some sort of original language that somebody wrote. Only by opium and hope against the searing, racking, operative pain. Seal Harris, women's surgeon. He gathered up all of the vesico-vaginal fistula he could, embodied in black female slaves, the first three named Anarcha, Lucy, and Betsy, and housed them in a little building in his yard. For fear, for I'm really getting sleepy because I can't say words anymore. For 4 years, he operated and failed 30 times in Anarcha alone. G.J. Barca Benfield, Horrors of the Half-Known Life. And I was going to say this earlier, and I forgot to, because that part about the mule. Um, like the section about it, I mean. Obviously, we want to read anything more specifically about the way that gynecology is entirely based around the abuse of black assigned female slaves. Definitely check out Harriet A. Washington's Medical Apartheid, because it goes all into that. There's plenty of other books about this too, but I think that is one of the most like overtly like telling and comprehensive texts that there are about this. From childbirth, our vulvas are torn open. We feel what it is inside us exposed, that our bodies give off odors, that we are horrifying. The edges of the opening are scarified. They are closed together. We touch ourselves, we place our hands over our vulvas, we search. To put the clitoris out of reach, the lips of the vagina are sewn together. We cannot swear that we are virgins. A hymen is sewn into place. Our vulvas are too sensitive to touch. Nitric acid is applied to destroy the mucosous membrane of the vestibule. The vestibule. The labia minora, or the labia minor, is removed. Our vulvas close against entry. We are frigid. Our husbands cannot enter us. We are sterile. Ether is administered. The body is rendered unconscious. The vagina is relaxed. Our vulvas will not open. We allow no entry. Entry. The hymen is excised. The vaginal sphincter muscle is sectioned. The pubic nerve is cut. Vagina is end-sized. Dilators are placed in the canal. We are hysterical. We cry without reason. We are slight. We are sickly. The physician applies leeches to the vulva. We are hysterical. It is said that we are too concerned with the clitoris, that the vulva must be retrained to receive, to seek penetration, that in this seeking girls become women. Womb. There were the Gressilons, which crushed the tips of fingers and toes in a vice. The Achiel or ladder, a kind of rack which violently stretched the body. The tortillon, which squeezed its tender parts at the same time. H.R. Trevor Roper, The European Witch Craze. It is almost a pity that a woman has a womb. 17th century physician. We grow thin, we are peevish, we are irritable. We have fits of crying, we cannot sleep at night. We cannot defecate, we cannot digest our food. We vomit, our heads ache, our backs ache. We exhibit madness. We are melancholy. We touch ourselves. We cannot help touching ourselves. We grow morbid. We believe we will be struck dead. For problems of the womb, marriage is prescribed. Childbirth is prescribed. The first incision is made straight, not curved, from one indentation to the next, regardless of previous scars on the abdomen and the skin. For problems of the womb, complete rest is prescribed. The absence of all stimulation. The cessation of all movement. Absolute passivity. The next incision is made in the subcutaneous. I can say this word, I swear, it's just my brain doesn't want to right now. The subcutaneous tissue down through the fascia in the midline to 1 1/2 inches only. Injections are made into the uterus of linseed tea, water, milk. Fascia is cut open by going under the subcutaneous tissue. Don't keep making me say that word. The scissors are placed in the space between two rectus muscles and opened in the line of incision. This gives a space in which the forefinger of each hand is now placed. The uterus is cauterized with silver nitrate, or with the hydrate of potassium, or by means of a white-hot instrument. The peritoneum is held by two straight forceps. It is incised and stretched sideways so that it is completely open to the size of the skin and fascial openings. It is decided that the cervix should be amputated. We have not learned the name for clitoris. We do not know what to call our vulvas. We have never seen our own vulvas. We know nothing about our wombs. These are mysterious to us. Clearer to us are our hands. Clearer to us are our feet. We do not invoke these dark places within us. These do not belong to us. These belong to men. We learn, only the men touch them. Only the men seize them, name them. Only the men have seen them. These are not part of us. It is decided that the neck of the womb ought to be removed to allow for the egress of menses and the ingress of sperm. The uterus is now lifted out of the pelvis. Tissue between the uterus and the tube and the ovary is cut with scissors. The bladder is pushed down off the cervix and vagina. Vagina. The bladder. I feel like I've read so much, but this book is really pushing my ability to read words because there's so many of these words were like anatomy and physiology words that are like complicated as fuck to say. The bladder peritoneum is cut and separated off. The peritoneum on the posterior surface of the uterus is cut. The uterus is pulled further out of the incision. The uterine vessels are clamped. The tissue towards the lower end of the cervix is cut. The vagina is entered. The uterus is held out of the incision. The vagina is entered laterally. The cervix is grasped. The vagina is cut anteriorly and posteriorly. The uterus is pulled to the left. The remaining tissue is cut. The uterus and cervix are removed. I think it would be like I it would be easier to read too. It's like it's hard enough to read the words that are hard to read, but it's harder when you're also reading about literal torture. Like that's I think the combination of literal torture and having to read really complicated words, that's not very, it's not, that's not supposed to happen. Like, that was book one though. I think that she did it exactly right. Like I said, for anyone that wasn't here, the whole time and maybe has caught a part of it and is here right now or maybe is listening to this later, like maybe let's say like I'm talking to people in the future right now, but let's say if you are only watching this on YouTube right now, this part, go back and watch the first part so that you can not only understand this in the context of the whole book so far, but so that you can also like contextualize it in the article about indigenous sovereignty that I read at the beginning of reading the first part. Because, like I said, Susan Griffin seems to do a pretty okay job, but she's still, as far as I know, I'm pretty sure she was at least a white second wave feminist, so she's only going to get so much. Like, I don't know about y'all, but when I'm reading it, like, she literally mentioned black female slaves one time, and she could have said a lot more. And that's what I expect from a second wave white feminist, you know. But honestly, it's surprising that she even said that, knowing most second wave feminists. So, anyway, this is the last Thursday until the semester starts. So, next week should probably be a pretty easy week. But moving forward, the reading weeks might have to move. I might actually be fine though. Like, so you all gotta remember, right? I haven't I haven't worked in months. And I'm about to start working again 4 days a week. So, like, obviously, I work every day anyway, but I'm gonna actually have to physically be in person. So, that is to say that by the last day of having to do that, which will be this day of each week, I may be tired. I may be too tired to continue it. So, there may be like a schedule change in the near future about Thursdays. Saturdays will probably be fine, I imagine, depending on how much grading I have to do. But stay tuned in case the changes are made on the schedule, for sure. But yeah, at the point of me saying that is that eventually I will read the, will start reading book two. And like I said, the first book was all her like recounting what was said. I think the second one is like that too, but it's just a little bit more expansive. So it's called Book Two Separation, the separations in his vision and under his rule. I forget what her description specifically said. I think she's still recounting. Yeah, it's kind of like she's going to more explicitly describe what was said by people allowed to say anything. And then, if I remember right, how many books are there? Three or four, I forget. Must be three. Yeah, the last one is called Book Three Passage, Her Journey Through the Labyrinth to the Cave Where She Has Her Vision. So the first two, obviously, are her recounting what's been said and like the enormous gravity of the weight of that. And then she finally speaks back to it and revisits what was said in a way that doesn't like kill you to read. So it should be important. I think the build up will be important. All right, y'all. There we have it. I read for 2 hours. I considered just almost calling it because I was like I said after even just the couple meetings today in person, I was pretty fucking sleepy. Um, But I was, yeah, so I was thinking of calling this off because I was like, well, I could sleep. But then I was like, nah. I read yesterday, but it was just the memoir. Which, speaking of, obviously right here. The first one is right here. And I can't point to the second one inside the screen, but pretend I'm pointing to it under the second one. On TikTok, you can't see it, but there you go. Well, you could, kind of. This is the new one. It came out yesterday. It now exists. It's much shorter. It's like half the length. But I read chapters. Well, I read the intro and chapter 0 and 1, 2020 and 2021. Check them out. That's also I did export it yesterday and added that to the Dr. Bird on Twitch playlist on YouTube. No, yeah, no problem. This is what I do. Yeah, hopefully I'll find either a better day for when I might do it. Who knows though? I might be fine on Thursdays. I am used to teaching 4 classes in a single day. So I might actually feel significantly less stressed having 2 and 2. Who knows? We'll see. Anyway, stay tuned. Thanks for hanging out. Hopefully you find this interesting. But yeah, definitely consider what she doesn't say between the lines. Her writing is really incredible, but it's she's still a product of her time, which isn't an excuse. It's just true. All right, y'all. Drink some water. Do something nice for yourself. We all deserve better. And I'll see you around the internets.